Welcome to the Heat versus the World podcast. And now, stand up and make some noise for your host, Joel Jacob.
Going on, Heat Nation? Welcome back to yet another episode of the Heat versus the World podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joel Jacob, and you can follow me on Twitter at JoelKJacob_. Like usual, I got some guests with me today. First, we got Brian.
What's up?
Then right after that, we got Quake.
What's going on, yo? It's been a minute. You can follow me at the Earthquake_3 on Twitter.
And then right after that, we have the newest member of the Heat versus the World family. Say what's up to the listeners, Kevin.
What's good, everybody? It's good to be here. Appreciate y'all for having me on. Let's get to it.
All right. So let's waste zero time and dive into today's episode. Last game, Miami lost to the Cavaliers by 26 points, which currently places them at the 5 seed as this pod is being recorded, giving them a record of 13-9. Tyler Hero had 21 points and 6 assists, while Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, and Dwayne Dedmon had 11 points each. Right after that, you have Max Strus with 10 points and 3 assists, and a disappointing 0 points from Duncan Robinson, who went 0 of 6 from the three-point line this past game. Also to add on, Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo were both out for this game, and yes, we will talk about the recent news regarding Bam and his injury. But before we do, how do you guys feel after watching this game against the Cavs? Start it off, Brian.
I've been saying this on the post game, but it feels like we're watching fake basketball. I don't know. Like, I get it. They lost to the Cavs, but the Cavs are a decent team, and you're missing your 2 best players. So I don't really feel any type of way about it. Like, it's a game that, against a 500 squad is a toss-up if you have, with Kyle Lowry and Tyler Hero. So I'm not down about it. I think that there's probably going to be, unfortunately, a lot of games where it's not going to look too good just because the Heat are handicapped right now. So it is what it is. You take the L, you move on, and you kind of keep the perspective that until this team is full and healthy, we're probably going to see a lot more L's.
Right. And what do you think, Quake?
Well, I told people before Bam got hurt that the Cavs were going to be tough and not to underestimate them because they play hard and they play defense. And when you have those 2 things going for you, you can be in any game regardless of how bad or how handicapped your offense is. And we saw that last night with Jimmy Butler and obviously Bam out. The Cavs' length was difficult for the Heat to score against with Markkanen, Mobley, and Jared Allen all starting together. And the Cavs have a generational rookie with Evan Mobley. This kid's going to be special. If the season ended today, he would be the rookie of the year, just based on what he does at both ends of the floor, particularly on defense. It's very rare you see a rookie impact the game defensively like he's been doing, especially for a big, but he's doing it. And so you just have to give them credit. Now, as for the Heat, as Brian said, there's not much you can really say about them. Again, this is a tough opponent to score against. And with your 2 best players out, including your best offensive player in Jimmy Butler, it wasn't going to be, or I wouldn't say it wasn't going to be much of a contest, but the result that we saw last night isn't something that anybody should be concerned or surprised about. Right.
And then how do you feel, Kevin?
Yeah, I agree with Brian and Quake. Like, they both hit on both good points. Like, we're missing our top 2 players. The Cavs, they're no longer a slouch. Like, Evan Mobley is a really good player, and he's completely changed the entire dynamic of that team. And he just made them completely better. K Love had a pretty good game. I think he had like 22 points off the bench. They shot 54% as a whole from the field. They also shot 51% from the 3-point line, and they out-rebounded us plus 18. So, like, it's a tough loss, but again, when you're missing your 2 top players, you're not really going to ever be able to compete in games like this. So I'm not really putting too much stock into this game. It kind of sucks, because with all the things going on right now, but on to the next.
I agree 100%. Especially hard, when you got, as you guys said, a lot of big men. Especially when Bam is out, we were at a huge disadvantage with that. And it's crazy to think that I think this is the first time the Heat lost at home to Cleveland since I think the last time was back in 2010 when LeBron was still a Cavalier, which is crazy to think about. But, obviously, especially with the news with Bam, I guess, us as Heat fans, we just got to hang on, just hope for the best. And, now I want to quickly talk about the situation with Bam. I wanted to get into this. As most of you guys have heard, Bam will be out for suffering a UCL tear in his right thumb, which came during the Heat's rematch with the Nuggets this past Monday. And to further add on, Ethan Skolnick has also reported in a recent article for 5 Reasons, and I quote that several sources told 5 Reasons Sports Network on Wednesday afternoon that the 4 to 6 week timetable that ESPN reported is conservative and a best case scenario. Adebayo's absence is likely to be close to double that. That would put his return at late February or early March, not only significantly stressing the Heat's front court rotation and starting lineup, but also taking him out of play to participate in his second All-Star game. So with that being said, considering how much of an impact Bam has had on this Heat team this year, what is your reaction to this devastating news? And how do you think Miami will handle things during Bam's absence? Kick us off quick.
Well, Eric Spoelstra during the Big Three era said a lot of interesting things, among which being that although LeBron James was the best player on the team, Chris Bosh was the most important. And I think in this case, it's very similar. And wherein you have Jimmy Butler as your best player, but Bam Adebayo is your most important. I think that Heat fans are going to learn that throughout this stretch, whether it be 1 month or 2 months. I think that Bam has been disrespected for too long by Heat fans on Twitter. And although Twitter isn't representative, obviously, of the entire Heat fan base, I think you can gather a good sense of where people's opinions, lie with certain players. So I think people are going to start to see the sheer importance that Bam Adebayo has at both ends of the floor. In terms of defensively, obviously, he's the anchor. And with him out, you have to lean heavily on Dwayne Dedmon, who played 31 minutes last night. Yurt-Seven only played 4 minutes last night. I think Spo is going to have to trust him to play regular rotation minutes and see if he can hang defensively. You can't just assume that he can't defend in space and use that as justification for not playing him. I think you have to see if he can. Because with Marquis Morris also out, you can't just be using these no center lineups with when Dedmon is off the floor. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't work, considering that you don't have somebody who can bang with bigs down low, minus Dedmon. So I think Spoelstra is going to have to do some tinkering with the rotation to find something that will work in Bam's absence. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Right. Kevin, how about you?
Yeah, this is tough. Like Quake just said, Bam's the anchor for this defense. He does a lot of good things, especially when it comes to this guarding, on-ball screens, being able to switch and be able to guard like 99% of guards in the league, which is a very rare thing to do for big men. So like, Spo's gonna have to get real creative with the lineups and the rotations because, not having Marquis Morris is even worse. It kind of worsens the situation, and hopefully, he can get back sometime soon. But it also sucks too, just because, we want to see Bam get developed. You know what I'm saying? He needs these in-game reps, to keep trying to elevate his offense. And, we know what he brings defensively. He's one of the best defensive bigs in the league. And we still have this rebounding problem that's been lingering for like the past few years, ever since Jimmy came to Miami. And not having Bam, who's probably arguably your best rebounder, that's tough. You know what I'm saying? And so, I don't know. I guess, it doesn't seem like Spo really has a lot of faith in Yurt-Seven right now. I think that's kind of concerning because he's been kind of up and down the minutes that he has played, but I think he's gonna have no other choice. Unless you want to play UD, which that's not crazy, but UD's up there in age. But regardless, though, like they're gonna look at it, they're gonna take the next man up approach. I think Kyle Lowry's going to have to take that jump because, I know this is a whole different conversation for another day, but a lot of people have been saying that Kyle Lowry's been playing like terrible and they wish he could score more, but he just hasn't gone into that mode yet. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of just been coasting, kind of like what we've seen from Jimmy sometimes. Like they want to get other dudes involved like Duncan and T Hero and other guys like that, Strus and Gabe Vincent. They want to see their confidence get boosted. So it's a very tough loss. I'm not going to lie because, Bam is a super important and vital part to this team, but we got to figure it out somehow. Everybody's dealing with something from COVID to injuries. And now it hit the Heat, and sadly it hit one of our better players, but we just got to keep it pushing.
Right. I agree 100%. And how do you feel, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, in a situation like this, there's not really much you can do. I mean, like Quake mentioned, I think that Bam is their most important player. And, in any situation, it'd be hard to replace what Bam brings unless you have an elite center. And I think that unfortunately, this is going to kind of show, especially with Marquise Morris out, that the Heat's front court depth is a little weak. And, there's going to be a lot of nights where they have to rely on PJ Tucker at the 5, and that puts a lot of stress on him as a 36-year-old. Or KZ Okpala. He was the first big off the bench the other night, and though he looked decent, we've seen what he's been in his first 3 years, and it hasn't been great. So yeah, they are going to have to trust you at 7. We're probably going to see some UD minutes, but unfortunately, there just isn't really an answer on this roster. I mean, Spo's going to have to, he's going to have to mix and match and see what he has, but ultimately, this is going to be a time where we really do see how important Bam is and how his impact is basically irreplaceable. There's going to be nights where maybe they can do it by committee. Not maybe, definitely can't do it by committee. But overall, it's not going to look good because Bam is that important. He's that talented. He means that much to this team. So it sucks. It's tragic. But hopefully by the time he gets back, he's rested and they can make a good second half push.
Right. And, before we continue, does anyone want to add on to that real quick?
Yeah. So I think I want to talk a little bit about Bam's impact on the offensive side of the ball. So my guy, Austin, he tweeted something funny last night. It was about the fact that Duncan, without Bam screening, looks like a JV player essentially, which based on last night's game, I don't think anyone can argue with. The dribble handoff plays between Bam and Duncan have decreased this season from last season, due to Kyle Lowry being on the team now. So, but not with Bam completely out of the lineup now. That's a major source of Duncan's offense that's gone. And one other thing I'd like to point out is, the possibility of getting a big off the buyout market, or sorry, not off the buyout market, but in free agency. There is one particular name in free agency that does intrigue me. It's Marquis Chris. I think he tore his Achilles when he was in Golden State, if I remember correctly, and that's why he got released. But he played well for the Warriors while he was there, and he showed some passes, some flashes of being able to be a good passer as a big man. So that's a name that I would look at potentially to sign if I were the Heat, even if it were just to a 10-day contract to see if he can even contribute still, at an NBA level, which given that Spoelstra is a very good coach and the Heat have a good offensive system, I think he should be able to contribute. So that's one name that I would just throw out there.
Right. And Kevin, Brian, do you guys have any names in mind to add on to Marquise Chris that could help Miami during this tough time?
Honestly, I think one that's kind of interesting. I don't know how the situation is going to play out, but I would keep an eye out for Marvin Bagley. They just fired Luke Walton. They got Alvin Gentry in there, so he has been playing way more. I guess, Bagley didn't have a great relationship with Luke Walton, but if that time comes, I think he will be good. I just think he needs to get a new situation, a fresh situation. And honestly, he probably will be perfect. He's not the greatest on defense, but anything is better than what we got right now, to be honest. Not saying that we're terrible in that end, but we could definitely get better when it comes to our front court depth, like they were saying. So I would look out for Marvin Bagley.
And then Brian, what about you?
Yeah, I don't know who is available via trade right now. The free agent big market is looking not great. I guess you could take a flyer on like a Harry Giles maybe, but The other problem is the Heat are really, really close to the luxury tax line, and I'm not sure if Mickey Arison is going to want to go over that for a temporary big. And then that's compounded by the fact that Caleb Martin is on a two-way contract, and eventually they do want to, I'm assuming transfer him to or convert him to a standard contract, which would take up their 14th roster spot or their final roster spot rather. So I don't. It's kind of a weird situation. It's like if you get a big right now, then that means that you probably have to send Caleb Martin back to the G League because he's not getting that roster spot. So you're going to be using up more of his 50 days. So yeah, I'm not really sure that there's a good answer right now. And again, if they do that, then that means they're at the luxury tax. I don't know if that's something they're willing to do at the moment. There's just not a lot of good options, honestly. I mean, it's basically taking a flyer on people on the free agent market or, trying to find a trade for, a stopgap big, but there's just nothing that they can do to replace Bam at the moment, or even for these, 1 to 2 months he's going to be out. It's just hard. It's just going to be hard to find that production, unfortunately.
Right. And, and that makes me think about this certain question that I want to ask you guys, because, right now with Bam out, I kind of view this like a bit of a hurricane where it's like, now you got to deal with this type of situation where it could possibly cause a lot of damage and everything. So with that being said, I want to ask you guys, how much damage do you think that this type of injury is going to have on the Heat? Now, we know how much of an importance Bam is to this team, but, when you look at the team's record and the team standing right now, like, do you think by the time Bam returns, whether if that is, in 4 to 6 weeks, or whether if it is, as we heard the report from 5 Reasons, maybe late February or early March, like, how do you see this team looking by the time Bam makes that return? And we'll start off with you, Kevin.
Honestly, I think they should be in a pretty good spot. I think they should probably be somewhere hovering around like where they are currently. Like you said earlier, we're at 50 right now, so they should still, they should be able to stay afloat. I know our upcoming schedule is kind of tough, but I mean that's just what it is right now. The East is the superior conference in the NBA right now, and a lot of people have been dealing with injuries. The Bucks have been hurt. The Bulls were without Vucevic for a minute because of COVID. Same thing with the Sixers with Embiid. So like it just came to Miami's turn. Now we don't have Bam. We're not gonna have him for probably a couple months. It's looking like. So I think we should be fine though. Again, I think Jimmy, when he gets back, he's gonna have to take it up another level. Same thing with Kyle, and I think the rest of the team will follow suit. I think we've been seeing an evolved version of Tyler Hero, but I know he could take it up a level. And that's obviously being optimistic, but I know our 2 best players currently without Bam, and Jimmy and Kyle can go to another level. I think that would be a huge thing, and hopefully be able to burn themselves out, because we're gonna need the best version of them come playoff time. But for now, we're gonna need it if we want to stay afloat. Like again, we can just hover around 5, 6, and maybe even 7, and I think that's a win. For as long as we're gonna be without Bam.
Right. And Quake,
If Bam is out until late February or early March, I don't know. Like it's difficult to say, because with him out, you're going to have to score at an elite level or borderline elite level in order to stay afloat. And in order for that to happen, Jimmy Butler has to, as Kevin said, step up his scoring game. Kyle Lowry has to be efficient, more proactive, looking for shots. Duncan Robinson has to get back to being a top 3 to 5 shooter that he was last season. There's a lot of variables that have to go the Heat's way in order for them to stay at that 5th seed or higher. So it's very difficult to say or to project where they're going to be with Bam out. I could see them falling into the play-in.
Jeez. And then Brian, you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the good thing is they have a little bit of a buffer before they're at 500, but Jimmy does need to step it up. Tyler Hero, he's already been playing out of his mind. Kyle Lowry needs to be a lot better. Duncan needs to shoot like we know that he can. Like, just a lot of things have to go right for them to maintain where they're at. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're probably going to be around 500, and in the East, that might knock you down a peg a little bit. Now, luckily, it's early in the season, and they can make a run once everybody is healthy, but it's going to be tough. There's going to be a need for, basically everybody to play well above what they've been at right now, or at for the season. So, yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I think the Heat fans should prepare for some ugly games, and during this time they're going to need to win the games that they've struggled with, versus the really bad teams that we've seen, the games that we've seen them lose or be close to losing. They're going to need to win, because it's going to be really, really tough when they're playing really good teams without Bam Adebayo. So I'm hoping for the best, but like I said, I would caution everybody to be prepared for a little bit of a slide.
Right. I agree. Like, to be without Bam and, right now being without Jimmy, as the report came out, and we will talk about this upcoming game soon, that Jimmy and obviously Bam, along with Marquis and Victor, the other obvious names, along with Marcus Garrett, all of those guys will not be with the Heat when they play the Pacers for this next game. It's going to be really tough for Heat fans to watch. I think we just got to hang tight right now, because, like I said, this is like a hurricane. You just got to hope for the best, and just see what happens. Once this hurricane ends, just make sure it's not as bad as you thought it would probably be, and just move from there. I now want to hit on another news that was brought up a couple of days ago, or just yesterday, and it was that the NBA announced this past Wednesday that they were going to be taking a second-round pick from the Heat as a result of their tampering investigation concerning the Heat's acquisition of Kyle Lowry. Now, I find this really hilarious, and the reason why is because we all know how Miami is. We know how their developmental system is and everything, and we know how they've been able to turn players who weren't even drafted into key pieces of the Heat's rotation. So, with all this being said, like, what's your reaction to the league's verdict towards Miami? Tell us, Brian.
No, I mean, I don't care. Like, the Heat don't care about the second round pick. Honestly, though, like, I'm gonna be honest, I wish the Heat did use their second round picks more. I think that second round players typically have more upside than guys who are undrafted. I mean, Nikola Jokic was an MVP. Like, name me the last undrafted MVP. So you can find some gems in the second round. But the Heat have obviously also been really good at developing guys who weren't drafted. So it's not like they really see a difference. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really mean anything. Like, I guess I'm not. I don't know. I'm pretty neutral on the whole thing. Could have been a lot worse. I guess maybe. I mean, the penalty is like fining millionaires or billionaires. It's suspending executives, even though we have phones. So it wouldn't have really made a difference either way. But good for the NBA, I guess. I don't know. Cool.
And what about you, Kevin?
Yeah, nah. If that's a penalty, you're getting a high value free agent over a second round draft pick. I'm taking that 10 times out of 10. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know who wouldn't. Like, I mean, I'm not mad at people for wanting to take them second round picks, because of course, the Heat have a pretty good history of just drafting players in general. But I mean, come on now. Like, would you want Kyle Lowry or a second round draft pick? You know what I'm saying? Like, the chance of a second round draft pick actually panning out are very slim, if history tells us anything. So, like, honestly, I was just surprised that it came to this, because when it was first reported months ago, like, people made it seem like we were about to lose all this money and it was possibly like that the trade could get rescinded. I knew that wasn't going to happen, but they were just making it seem like it was going to be the worst thing possible. And for all this to play out, just to come to some second round picks, is honestly just laughable. So, I mean, really, in all honesty, the Heat really didn't lose anything. And I don't even think they did anything wrong at that, because that's pretty much what the NBA said. But, I mean, it is what it is. Like, I just find it funny, to be honest.
Right. And I'm gonna pass the mic to you real quick, but I just want to add that, if you look at the Heat's history, I mean, especially when you look at the numbers that are hung up in the rafters, I mean, so far, the only number that's hung up of a player that the Heat drafted is Dwayne Wade. There's no other player right now up in the rafters, that was a guy that the Heat drafted. Chris Bosh, that was someone we got from Toronto. Tim Hardaway, Alonzo Mourning, those guys weren't drafted by the Heat. And, it's going to be a while until we see another drafted Heat player, get their number up in the rafters. Hopefully the next time we see that is when, it's going to be Bam's turn. But I find it really funny, just like you, Kevin. So, with that being said, Quake, how do you feel?
Well, this decision isn't going to dissuade GMs from tampering in the future. And the NBA made this decision knowing that it's not going to do that. If they were serious about stopping tampering, they would have maybe taken a first-round pick from us and from the Bulls. The fact that they didn't do so tells you that Adam Silver is not only a player-friendly commissioner, but he's an owner-friendly commissioner. If this were David Stern, I think we would have seen real consequences. So this is nothing that dissuades me in any real way whatsoever. I think that if the Heat see a player that they like in the second round, they should simply just buy a second round pick, as teams do.
I agree. And like I said, it's just very funny. I mean, was there any picks in the Kyle Lowry trade? Like I know we gave up Goran and Precious, but was there any picks?
No, I don't think so.
All right. So basically the trade package was Goran, Precious, and a second round pick. Like, who cares? If Miami didn't use that second round pick, for whatever, they would have eventually used it in some sort of trade. I mean, and that's just how it is. So, it's just really funny to look at. And, now I want to move on to this next topic. So now I want to talk about the Spotlight Heat Player of the Week. To those who are listening, who are new, this is a new segment we're doing where we praise whatever Heat player you feel has not received the proper amount of praise that they should be receiving. And I know we've seen so much from our Heat players these past few games that maybe you guys want to comment on. So I want to hear what you guys got to say. So who is your Spotlight Heat Player of the Week, Kevin?
I'm gonna just go with Gabe Vincent, to be honest. Like, he hasn't been playing out of his mind, but he has been playing like a much improved player going back to last season. Because I'll be honest, like, it was a point in time, and I know there'll probably be some Heat fans out there that agree with me, but it was a point in time where literally it felt like every time Gabe Vincent put up a jumper, I thought he was gonna miss. Like, I just assumed he was gonna miss, and the team's got to be ready to rebound because he just didn't look like he had faith in himself. He looked like he was lacking confidence. He looked like he just wasn't ready to hoop, to be honest with you. He just didn't look like he was an NBA player. And I'm glad to see that he trusted the process. I don't even like saying that, but honestly, he did. He put a lot of confidence to himself. He clearly believes in the work that he put in. And honestly, I'm happy for him because, going into the season, everybody was saying, what do the Heat have off the bench? They got a really good starting five, but do they have anything off the bench? And, we knew, Max Strus was going to come up, and a couple other guys, and Marquis Morris should be, solid for us, but I don't really think anybody expected Gabe Vincent to be as solid as he's been. And recently he's been shooting a lot better, but I just think his play in general just has come a long way as a playmaker. Like, he's not great or anything, but he's a serviceable backup point guard for now. Obviously, of course, we're still waiting for Oladipo, but, I got to give a lot of credit to Gabe Vincent, man. He's definitely probably, he proved me wrong. I think he probably proved a lot of people wrong. So I think he deserves some love and recognition for that.
Right. And Brian?
I'm going to go Max Strus just because in the 3 games since he's been back, he's scoring double digits, and he's essentially been the closest thing that we've had to Duncan Robinson, to like the real Duncan Robinson in a minute. So props to him. I am not the biggest Max Strus guy, but considering he's our best white shooter off the bench, probably the best white shooter on the season next after Tyler Hero, he gets props from me. I've questioned the bench all year. I feel like I still feel like it's maybe not the best. And outside of Tyler Hero, it's kind of like, a toss up every night. But recently he's played pretty well. So I'm gonna give him his props for that.
And then Quake, what about you?
Yeah, I'm also going with Gabe Vincent. The last 5 games before the Denver game, 13 points per game on 46% from the field, 45% from 3 off the bench. Those are very solid stats for a backup point guard. If he's done anything during this stretch, it's proved that he was an NBA player, which I question going into the season. I didn't think that he was an NBA player, but obviously he's showing that he can play at this level. So I'm going to go with him.
Right. And I agree. I honestly also go with Gabe Vincent because, that game against Chicago not too long ago, I just friggin' loved it. I remember he was a bit of a sniper actually when he first came to the Heat as a two-way contract. And I remember, I think it was the game where I believe against the Clippers. And I remember that was like during the night of the trade deadline. And we barely had anyone play because of the upcoming trade, which would end up being for Iguodala, Jay, and Solomon Hill. So he was a good 3-point shooter that game. And I remember I remember thinking to myself as games went by, like, whatever happened to that dude? So to see him go to Chicago and play the way how he played, it was amazing. So I'm also gonna go with Gabe Vincent for that. And to all those who are watching this on the 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube channel, we want to hear your picks as well. So comment down below and tell us who's your pick for the Spotlight Heat Player of the Week. So next up, I now want to talk about this upcoming game against the Pacers. As we all know, Jimmy and Bam are not going to be playing. And you also have Marquis Morris, who's out along with Marcus Garrett and Victor Oladipo. All right. So with that being said, knowing that these guys are going to be out and knowing that we did lose to Indiana the last time we played against them, which was the second game of the season, how do you guys feel about the Heat's chances and what do you expect from them against the Pacers this next game? We'll start off with you, Quick.
Well, I think this is a perfect game for Year 7 to get real run. You're going up against Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis, both of whom can punish you inside, obviously without Bam. So I think this is a game where you can't afford to play too small. You can play with PJ Tucker at the 5 in spurts, but I don't think you can do it over the course of the entire game. Nor do I think you should play Caleb Martin at center. So I think this is the perfect game to see if Year 7 can contribute anything on the defensive end, and also to see what he can contribute on the offensive end. And if Spoelstra is hesitant towards using Year 7, then perhaps he should use Udonis Haslem in this game.
Right. And you, Kevin?
Yeah, I agree with Quake. I think Year 7 would be perfect in this game just because it's a good test. Sabonis and Turner are pretty good defensive bigs. And I'm kind of concerned because I feel like the first time we played the Pacers earlier this season in Indiana, Chris Duarte was playing super confident. I just think people, when they see Duncan Robinson guarding them, they just get a new sense of confidence. And, he's a rookie. He's like 24, though. He's an older rookie, but he's really good. And that's going to cause a lot of matchup problems. And especially without Jimmy, that's going to be a real interesting matchup. So we're going to need Tyler to keep doing what he's been doing. Hopefully we can get a big contribution from somebody like Max Strus, preferably, maybe even Caleb Martin. But, even Kyle Lowry. I think this is a favorable matchup for Kyle Lowry, to be honest, because, Brogdon is a tough matchup. But, I've watched Kyle play against Malcolm Brogdon, in years past, and he's usually gotten the better of him. So I think we're going to need – and me personally, I don't need Kyle Lowry to go out and drop 30. It's not what I'm asking at all. I just want him to be aggressive. And like y'all was saying, look for a shot. You know what I'm saying? Don't be so unselfish, because sometimes we need you to be selfish, in a good way. Sometimes our offense, loses traction and momentum, and we need a bucket. And we know Kyle's not the greatest when it comes to creating separation, but he is still good at getting his own shots and getting to his spots and knocking down tough shots. So I think we're going to need a big time performance from him, even if it just comes from assist. You know what I'm saying? We need some type of life right now. We need some type of spark. And usually when you need that, it comes from your point guard, because your point guard is pretty much your quarterback. And so I need Kyle Lowry to step up this game and get us his win, because we honestly need it bad right now.
Right. And it's kind of insane to think about, that last game we played against Indiana, Jimmy and Bam were playing and Lowry was out. And now this time Kyle is playing and Jimmy and Bam are out, so it's kind of insane to think about it. And you know what? I expect a gutsy performance from the Heat. Do I think they get the win? You know what? I'm going to say yes, simply because I think they know what's ahead of them, and that they know that they're gonna have to bowl out every day and night, play basketball like they've never played it before, especially when two of their max guys are out. So that's gonna be my prediction. I really hope I'm not wrong, but I'm kind of afraid I will be. I mean, what do you guys think? Quake, what's your prediction?
I don't know, man. It's tough. I think that the front court combo of Turner and Sabonis is going to be a lot to handle tomorrow night. I'm not going to say that the Heat will lose or that they'll win. What I will say is that we need a big performance from Tyler Hero, especially in order to pull this out. He scored 21 against Cleveland. I think we're going to need closer to 25 points in this game.
Right. And then you, Kevin?
Man, I don't know. Honestly, if I'm keeping it 100, I think we're gonna probably lose. I hate to admit that and say that, but I just think it's such a favorable matchup for the Pacers that how could you not think that they're gonna win? You know what I'm saying? With Bam being out, they're gonna have Sabonis pretty much being guarded by probably like Dedmon for majority of the game, and then Miles Turner should have a good game too. And then plus we got rebounding issues right now. It sucks for me to say this. Trust me, I do not like losing to the Pacers. I don't like losing, period. But unless, like I said, unless we get a big-time performance, Quake made a great point with Tyler Hero. Like, we need that. And we just need Kyle Lowry to just be that point guard that we know he can be. And he's been that for the majority of the season. But, again, I know he could take it up another level. We've seen it in games like the Clippers when he had like 20-plus points in the fourth quarter. We've seen it when we were playing in Dallas when he had a great game in that game too, where his fingerprints was all over that game. Like, he's shown us. Like, people think he hasn't stepped up, but he showed us in a few different occasions now that he has a couple other extra levels that he can go to. And I'm holding out that he's going to do that in the playoffs. But right now, again, with Bam being out, Jimmy being out, it's Kyle's time. You know what I'm saying? It's Tyler Hero's time first, of course. Don't get it twisted. But you also need, a running mate. You know what I'm saying? You're not winning games unless you have, two all-star caliber players nowadays. That's just how the NBA is. There's so much talent. So sadly, I'm going to say the Pacers win, but we could also win this game too. So don't get it twisted. But I'm going to just say for now that the Pacers will probably win this game.
Right. And I agree with you 100%. This is definitely a matchup that the Pacers want. It's definitely going to be a tough one. And, one more question I want to ask you guys. Do you guys think we'll get a Duncan Robinson revenge game? I don't even know we should call it a revenge game because honestly, it seems like he gets hot and then like the next 5 games, it's just nothing. Like, what do you guys think? You guys think we're going to get a D-Rob? I don't know. I guess you can call it a revenge game or whatever. Like, what do you guys think? Start us off quick.
I'll be optimistic on this one. I'll say we will. He's definitely not going to go 0 for 6 again. That's not happening, especially after he had a streak where it was 60-something plus games with 1 or more threes made. Like, for him to go 0 for whatever 2 straight games, that's not going to happen. So I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that he does have a quote unquote revenge game.
Right, and you, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna agree with Quake. I still have a lot of confidence in Duncan Robinson. Like, I know a lot of people are kind of like giving up on him and blaming him for a couple of losses that we had, like the Laker game and even the Clipper game going back when we was on that West Coast trip. But I just think right now it's just in between his head. It's just a mental thing right now. He just got to get out of his own head and know that he's still one of the premier shooters in the league. Like, even though he's going through this slump, they're still going to play him like he's a top 3 shooter in the league. You know what I'm saying? His gravity is crazy. I know we use that word a lot, but it's true. You know what I'm saying? And me personally, I'd like to see him expand his game a little more. Like, I know the Heat coaching staff is probably telling him to just shoot. But I think sometimes, and we've seen it a few different occasions now, but I think he creates so much gravity that he's always going to have open lanes to getting to the rim. And I think I also like to see him take like 1 dribble pull-ups and take the mid-range shot. I know it's not, a high percentage shot, from stat nerds and stuff like that. But I think it's a good shot, you know what I'm saying? So I would like to see him expand his game a little bit more because I think just letting him shoot threes is kind of holding him back right now, and it's kind of making him one-dimensional. And when he's not hitting threes, he's almost unplayable. I hate to say that, but he's close to unplayable. He's not fully unplayable, but he's damn near close. So I'd like to see him expand his offensive repertoire slightly, not too much, but when the opportunity's there, when the defense gives you that opportunity, you got to take advantage of it. That's all offense is. The defense messes up. You got to take that advantage and make the most out of it. So I do think he should have a bounce back game. I think he should come out, scorching for it. Not scorching, but I do think he'll come out the gate and hit a few threes to get us going offensively, hopefully.
Right. I honestly hope that's the case for him. To go 0 for 6 from the 3-point line, already people are making memes about it, how basically everyone on this podcast right now scored just as much points as Duncan Robinson this past game. So it's crazy to see. And then just one last question before we close it out. Who do you guys think will end up being the leading scorer for the Heat? I think it'll probably be an easy answer for you guys. Maybe some of you guys think Tyler Hero. I mean, what do you guys think? Start us off quick.
Well, I would bet on Tyler Hero, but I'm hoping it's Kyle Lowry. I think that we're overdue for a big Lowry game since the Dallas game. Kevin mentioned that earlier. That was probably the second best game he's had this season. And it was a masterclass performance, especially in the second half. So I'm hoping that Kyle Lowry is the biggest reason why the Heat pull out a W tomorrow.
Right. And then you, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm going to go Kyle Lowry as well. Again, it's easy to say Tyler Hero, and he probably will have a big-time game, even though the defense is probably going to be focused in on him and locked in on him because he'll more than likely be the number one guy on the scouting report. But I just think that Kyle's going to have opportunities. Sabonis isn't the greatest defensive player. He's pretty good when it comes to just being in the right place at the right time, but you can put him in ball screens and make him work. And same thing with Turner. Like, Turner is good at when it comes to blocking shots, but when you actually make him move his feet on the perimeter, he's not the best. Laterally, he's kind of slow. His size kind of holds him back in his frame as well. So I just think, again, like without Jimmy and Bam, Kyle has to turn up. That's all it comes down to. He has to take it up a notch and not necessarily put the team on his back, but just make plays consistently. That's all it's going to come down to. He's been great on defense. He's been pretty good when it comes to playmaking. He scores, when he wants to, but now he really has to force his will in the game. That's what it comes down to. He has to be an impact type scorer, and I'm expecting that. Not every game, but a few games, during this stretch without Bam and for however long we don't have Jimmy, which shouldn't be that long because he doesn't even like sitting out with injuries in the first place. But, I'm going to go with Kyle.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I'm going to actually take that route with you guys. I wouldn't be surprised, as you guys said, if Tyler Hero did have a good game. We all know what he's capable of doing. He's basically a bucket at this point. But at the same time, I would love a Kyle Lowry masterpiece. And especially considering the fact he did not play that last game against Indiana. So it would be good to see what he's capable of doing against them. But yeah, I'm going to take that Kyle Lowry route with you guys. So anyways, we covered a lot in today's episode. Is there anything else you guys feel like we should hit on, or are we ready to call it an episode?
I'll just say, Heat fans, don't panic. Like Brian was saying earlier, it might get a little bumpy, but that's every season. It's an 82-game season. Things happen. You're going to go on win streaks. You're going to go on losing streaks. You're going to have peaks and valleys. You're going to have highs and lows. Just stay the course. His team is still good. Jimmy is Jimmy. He's still a top 10, top 15 player in the league. And when he gets back, he'll help you guys win games. He'll help us win games. And just don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. Bam seems like he's in good spirits. So just be at ease for the next few months. It's not going to be pretty, but it's not going to be the worst that it could possibly be.
Amen. And you, Quick?
Yeah, just to echo what Kevin's saying, just take emotions out of it. I know that's hard. I know that's hard, especially for Heat fans, but it's something that's necessary. Like, just, break down each game rationally from a logical point of view. See what went wrong, what didn't, and what can be improved going into the next game. And try to, stay away from hot takes, about about certain players and whatnot. Like, you're only adding to your stress by doing so. So,
right. I agree 100% with both of you guys. So, as Quake and Kevin had said, just take it easy, Heat fans. We know what this team is capable of doing when everyone is healthy. Just gotta take a deep breath and take it one game at a time. So anyways, thank you all for tuning in to today's episode of the Heat vs. the World podcast. For more content, feel free to check out our Twitter and Instagram at HVTW Podcast. Additionally, make sure to check out our new website at hbtwpodcast.wordpress.com, while also checking out Culture Shock, the Heat vs. the World's newest extension show, which is the first Miami Heat podcast to feature an all-women cast, as they will be dropping their next episode very soon. And you can follow them on Twitter at CLTRShockPod. So once again, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you later with another episode of the Heat vs. the World podcast. We out.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time with a brand new episode of the Heat vs. the World podcast.